Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I was just telling our next guest I scuba dive in the ocean to avoid lake monsters and creatures.
Yes, and he dropped a term called, I believe it's Cadbosaurus. John Kirk joining us, cryptozoologist and president of the BC Scientific Cryptozoology Club.
So you're telling me that there's monsters, which I'm not supposed to say, in White Cliff Park?
Well,
Cove?
there are such creatures in BC coastal waters, that's for sure.
Really?
In the ocean?
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard of Ogopogo, Loch Ness Monster, everything else, but I thought we had a pretty good sense of what was living in the local waters.
Well, you see, the thing about Cadbosaurus was they've actually had actual specimens of this thing.
Cadbosaurus?
Cadbosaurus, named after Cadbora Bay on Vancouver Island, okay?
Not the
where it was
chocolate
seen
bar, no.
frequently in the 1930s, but it's seen all over the BC coastal waters, right up to Alaska and down to the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. You're a cryptozoologist. What
That's
is
the word
that?
they like to use. Well, it's a person who's interested in the field of cryptozoology, which is the study and the search for unknown animals. For instance, things like Ogopogo, Sasquatch, Cadbosaurus, the Yeti, Loch Ness Monster, and all that kind of stuff. I use the Loch Ness Monster because I don't believe it exists. So I'm okay with that word.
Yeah,
for
that one's totally made up.
Totally made up.
So why do you
Scotsman,
believe
right?
in the other ones?
The other ones I have personal experience with. For instance, I have seen Ogopogo a number of times in Okanagan Lake. I've seen another creature in Sproat Lake on Vancouver Island, and I have very good sonar readings from Cameron Lake in 2009 and 2010. Plus, I found Sasquatch tracks out in the bush.
Okay, so how come lots of other people aren't finding these? Are we just not looking properly? Are we not? I mean, because I have stared at Lake
Who's
Okanagan.
looking? Except kooks like me and my associates. We're not really
So
kooks, but
let's take
people think we're nuts.
Ogopogo, for example. How
Okay.
long have people been seeing him,
Yeah,
he,
there's
she,
a long
it
history.
for?
Well, the First Nations people have petroglyphs on Okanagan Lake that depict this animal, such as you can see in my footage there in the center of the picture. It's rising to the surface in the middle of Okanagan
Isn't
Lake.
that a current?
No, it's not a current because it's dead calm down there on the lake. And this thing rose from the depths of the lake, and as you can see, it becomes more three-dimensional as you look at it.
How long do you stare at bodies of water
Yeah,
for?
no kidding.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. It's easier to look at paint dry and watch grass grow than it is to watch
Now,
a
you
lake.
mentioned sonar.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we just be able to go to any lake and use the sonar and see what's under there at any time?
You could. Now, if you go to Okanagan Lake, for instance, it's 80 miles long and 2 miles wide, so you're going to be puttering around the lake, hither, yonder, backwards, forwards, for days on end, and then you might have a lucky break and actually spot it. If you go to a little lake like Cameron Lake, which is what we did, 2 miles long by half a mile wide, you've got a way better chance of picking something up.
And what's this?
That's
we have
the
a picture
Cameron
from
Lake
Cameron
picture.
Lake, and that is a very strange picture. Explain this to us. What?
This was taken by Bridget Horvath in July 2007. She's a Nanaimo resident, and she happened to see this thing, 3 of them swimming in the lake. You can just see the back end of one at the front, and then
Looks
you've
like a
got the
duck
main
to
one.
me.
A duck.
No, I'm kidding.
It's a very strange duck, Mike. I hope.
Well, I mean,
3 of them usually only hear about one. You said not to say monster, one creature.
Yeah.
Is this
cryptid?
the only lake that has more than one little critter?
No, up in a place called Yatsu Lake in northern BC last year, which is near Burns Lake, a lady saw 3 of these, as did her father and her granddaughter. And they came out of the water, they saw the heads of all 3 of them, darkish gray looking, serpentine heads with serpentine bodies. And then I get an email from a guy who saw it in the lake just above that about 4 years ago. So they're all over BC. It's not just Okanagan Lake.
So how do you and your fellow cryptozoologists, how do you try and convince people? I mean, you guys.
We don't try and convince people. This is really for ourselves. We found a mystery, just like the Scooby-Doo people, right? So we're going out there in our own mystery machines and what have you to go look for this thing. Literally, I mean.
Way to keep it believable.
Well, we're going to keep it believable, but it's like that Scooby-Doo thing. There's a sense of adventure for us, and it's for our own satisfaction.
Yeah.
Whether we prove it to other people is irrelevant.
See, I believe in ghosts, but I think you're crazy. I can, like, you know.
I think you're crazy for believing in ghosts, honey.
I know.
Oh, my word.
You have to have a fairly thick skin, though, to be involved in this, because, I mean.
Stick a knife in there and it won't penetrate.
Yeah, because people's initial reaction is always like, what are you talking about? But when you think about the size of our planet and our world and the things that you don't know what you don't know.
No, you don't. If you take the oceans, for instance, where Cadbosaurus allegedly lives, okay, we've only explored 6% of the world's oceans. How many people are actually examining bodies of water like inland lakes and what have you?
Yeah.
And who's out there in the montane forest looking for the habitat of Sasquatch? nobody except people like us, dedicated amateurs who have a professional and scientific bent to this. We're not like the X-Files or paranormalists. We want to find out what the heck this animal is and where it fits into the whole zoological spectrum.
Do you swim in lakes?
Well, I finally have found the guts to do that. In 1987, I saw Ogopogo in Okanagan Lake for the first time. That's how I got interested. And I wouldn't swim in that lake for 19 years until 2006. I said, I've got to get rid of this illogical phobia. It takes a lot of time to actually see this animal. It's not going to come and hit me. Not like Jillian in The Bachelorette, who claims she was struck by Ogopogo.
We're going to ask Jillian this because she comes on the show every now and then. But,
Splendid.
But she actually mentioned this on the show, that when she was swimming in the lake, something gave her a little nudge.
Yeah, she's the third person I know who's had that experience in Okanagan Lake when something big and slimy hit them from underneath.
You know it's not a fish.
Well, there aren't fish that big in those lakes that can actually jolt you. Some people say there's sturgeon in Okanagan Lake, but nobody's ever pulled one out in over 100 years.
Yet another mystery. It must make you laugh. I mean, because we're tying this in with Scooby-Doo, but it must be always interesting, I mean, when you believe something, to see how it's portrayed in popular culture and media and sort of, you know, the way it comes onto the big screen in different projects.
I never thought when I was watching Scooby-Doo as a teenager, right, that I would end up doing what these guys did. That was the furthest thing from my mind. It was great escapist fare and what have you, but sometimes life is stranger than fiction.
So
and
this is
you've
the new
seen this
Scooby-Doo?
movie already. What do you think of it?
Oh, I think it's terrific. It's a lot of fun. Something you can watch during spring break with the kids and what have you.
Yeah.
And the monster's not the usual monster. I won't ruin that for viewers, but it's a kind of different monster from the one that we've been dealing with over the years.
Would the monster have gotten away with it if it wasn't for
Those meddling
those kids and their dog?
Well, this is where the mystery lies. You'll have to see the show to find out.
Well, we do
always
have
a
a
pleasure
giveaway. You can check out Scooby-Doo, Curse of the Lake Monster, the latest CGI and live-action title of the Scooby-Doo franchise. It comes to Blu-ray DVD on March the 1st. That's today. You can enter to win a gift package, including your own little Scooby.
Kids, get out there and stare at some lakes for hours and hours. You'll be amazed what you may see.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, with help.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you.